Вячеслав Андреевич. Ура, дамы и господа, мы...
Hooray! At least now we can start working at the end of the final session of the forum, at least the business program, to discuss finally the main anti-crisis practices and how the regions are aligning their strategy. Forum is quite an interesting site, and at many sessions I heard that it was discussed what shouldn't be done, what errors can be made by regions. And many things were also said, how to find a way out of crisis situations, but those were mostly general recommendations, rather structural reforms won't hurt, and each means something very intimate, and it's good that this is quite a blurred term. And Mr. Gref, the head of Savings Bank, and just as people say in Odessa, this is two different things. But to give a tools box to be used by specific regions, at least myself, I didn't hear that. So how the regions should avoid this situation, it's an interesting, intriguing thing. So for us to understand what happens in the regions, I would rather start off our discussion with giving floor to Ekaterina Trofimova, the head of General Director of Analytic Credit Agency, Accra. Thank you very much. I'd like to start off from analysis of a title of our session. Not very optimistic to end the forum by a panel handling the anti-crisis plans. At least, well, recognizing the fact that we have a crisis situation. While the crisis has a time limit, and I can recall now that in Eastern languages, crisis is a turning point, a tipping point, so it cannot last long. So if we remember that we certainly lived through a crisis from the second part of 2007, if we recall that there was a world crisis. So I'd rather use the word the development plans, and it would be good from the standpoint of macroeconomic indicators that we are monitoring, and from the standpoint of the measures taken now. So it would be prudent to refer to them as development plans under very delicate conditions. The public recognized that we are living through a new reality, and understanding the context is the just 50% solution of the issue, what way to choose. So we finished with firefighting activities and finding temporary supports, and now we're moving towards systematic solution. When I was an analytic for many years, I was interested to discuss the crisis topic over 10 years already, with many participants of market regulators in Russia, abroad, and I just came to the thought that it would be good to understand my counterpart when he's asking me when the crisis is over. And having analyzed this style of the talk, what is delivered, I came to a conclusion that whoever is asking the question when the crisis is over, so when we are making the anti-crisis measures, and this is not the right setting of the issue, and this wrong approach makes a solution impossible, because the impetus is the following. So if whoever is developing anti-crisis measures or waits when the crisis is over, just this is anticipation that there'll be a return to the initial point where just everything was good and there were money were plenty. So when I'm asked what anti-crisis measures should be taken, I'm just start talking about you have to stop fighting the crisis. You have to understand how to adapt to those conditions that we are living through now. and you should keep analyzing the situation that is ever-changing. Now we're living through a very interesting and thrilling point, and we will tell our grandchildren, because the rate of the change in Russia, we have the wealth of experience on the rate of the change. Maybe not on the depth, but just through the this. I would like to draw a parallel with 80s and 90s, and those were absolutely different change, and just the culture was changing. And I, as a macroeconomist, I have a deep down feeling that the demography is the main leverage, and there was well, I will just come to regions, no worries. And the previous session we were touching on the success of India. So I think that this is not because of the monetary ruling, but demography undercurrents and the decrease of dynamics in demography doesn't leave any hope to improve things in economy rather than improving the production. Productivity. So I'd like to start from what I should return from what I have started. This is the erroneous and to fight the crisis for 10 years. This is fighting the windmills. You should understand under what conditions we are now. Make prudent conclusions. Understand that we cannot get back to the previous reality, and the reality will keep changing at a fast pace. And management talents are discussed. They are very important now, and it's widely recognized now that the authorities, leaderships, and even microeconomists cannot invent magic solutions. And I know how things are getting on at various regions in Russia and abroad. And for me, I made a solution that you can develop various theories. And I was amused and a bit appalled when about 5 years ago the Financial Times just gathered macroeconomists, and they just, I don't know what pot they smoke, but if resurrect the Keynes and what he would say. Well, this sounded very strange, but much depends on the people on the ground, regardless of what level. And the magic theory is something fantastic. So Keynes won't help us, even he's resurrected. Or you can run the spiritic seance. So if whoever resurrects Keynes, he wouldn't be in a position to invent something magic. So there's the banal solution, laughable. Work well and start from yourself. And I'm not just trying to motivate you, and I'm just referring to what I see by my own eyes, and only there where the business is in the top place and top priority, the things are moving in the right direction, and the probability is higher for success story there. And if coming back to the regional level, well, the toolbox is pretty standard to promote the rate of development, monitoring the situation in social, and well, I have a half-page list, but I just repeat, the toolbox is obvious and known, and once again, you should keep in mind the external situation. So if somebody has a oil well and somebody doesn't, but even if you have, it doesn't guarantee that you're successful. So if you handle the realistic situations, the climate is different in various countries, and the management system, administration is the thing that people on the ground and regions can just know they determine the success or not success. And regions are living through turbulent times because they are an area for management experiments now. So taxes are volatile, and when at the previous session I came to a conclusion that maybe history shows that you cannot find an optimal solution, and search for a solution is a solution itself. But the efficiency, which I was mentioned, should be found only when you use the right toolbox, and control and discipline should be monitored, and when there people are just swinging from one side to another one, this complicates search for a solution. So maybe it's worth mentioning and preempting what my colleagues would say. The financial issues and how the regional finance structure will be. This is the most acute issue. And I'm head of the rating agency, which was set up pretty recently. And we had a unique chance to start, based on the best practices in the international analytics, to start from the scratch and to base our methodology the statistics findings which were compiled for over 20 years of the Russian economic history. And we found very interesting things that accounting for the dominance of the international agencies of the Russian market, and unfortunately very narrow coverage by them of regional things for several reasons. And I think we should stay away from discussing that. There are many stereotypes which we discovered at the stage of modeling and the validation of simulation, which we hopefully avoid during our activity. If you understand, the rating agency is doing the following. We estimate the credit risks, and we're ranking companies, the administrative bodies within the framework of arbitrary national scale for Russian Federation. To translate it into the common language, whether the party will pay or not. So the ratings of different types, kinds exist, attraction, non-attraction, efficiency, selectability, and our rating is very simple and straightforward and very narrow. But I think we are handling the key risk assessment. Because we understand that the federal transfer from the budgets will decrease, and according to our estimates, hundreds of billions of rubles of funding that will be required to be attracted from the market, and the regions are not protected when they interact with the markets, and the regions are not bad, which is not confirmed by default statistics, and discipline in regions are even better in actuality if you take away the emotions. Rating agencies, this is not emotion, this is about numbers. So if you put aside emotions, the regions are showing one of the best, if not the best, indicators of result of their payment discipline, which seemingly under all standards of financial theory is contradicting, because they should have the lower value under the same givens, and the efficiency of the market, the lack of transparency results in the fact that when negotiations with banks are underway, the regions under these situations are expelled from the bilateral discussion to non-public discussion with banks. But we can put in the premium just what premium they pay, and this is much higher than their realistic credit risk level. So this is not justified. So I think that we should facilitate the just decrease of the value. So even the rates are coming down, and funding and involving the non-targeted budget funding, regional funding. So this trend will be curbed, and the regions should be on par in negotiation with their financial partners, and come to the thing that the regions are not familiar with. So change of the financial management, and maybe HR reshuffling, come to the open markets, to the stock exchange, to decrease the value of resource. But there's an ambiguity. The federal government didn't give just the message what structure they see, because the social load is growing by a factor of 10 or 100. We monitor the change of the cost base, and dynamics is very nerving. And at the beginning of this September, the ACRA published the results of monitoring, and we discussed at the meeting with the ministry. And there's a growing disparity between the regions of the debt load, which is associated with the change of the system of funding from the federal center. And this issue will get more acute if you don't find a proper solution. So coming back to the cost base, so the authority of cost absorption is increasing. We see that why this disparity is growing in the regions, among the regions, due to the increase of the social spendings. Costs on investment, on capital investment, are becoming lower. So according to our estimates in 2011, the consolidated numbers of regions show that 52% of the cost base are spent on social needs. In 2016, according to our forecast, it will be 64%, given that the share of the line items to develop the communal is shrinking. And this is the average temperature for the hospital. And if you look at specific regions, we know that the indicators are twisted, so we can see that the spendings are even higher, but this doesn't provide for a growth potential. So where the sources of income in the future? So what we see in many regions, for objective reasons, cannot substantially increase the capital spendings. So if in Moscow and St. Petersburg this number is 19%, in majority of regions this is 5% of the cost base, spending base. So here I'd like to stop that. We start dialogue. So, Ekaterina, if you allow, I will provoke the panel, and this I will do it on purpose. So you started by saying, and in fact I agree, that if you say that this is we're living through crisis, you will end up just in the middle of the crisis, in the bullseye of the crisis. So I don't know the Chinese, and I know that Chinese crisis has two characters. Then the second part indicates the potential. So the crisis is just the potential, and what you said afterwards. We're living through crisis, and the statistics you gave demonstrates that we have a long-term strategic crisis phenomena. If they're not phenomena yet, but in some time they will become. We will come to the crisis situation. And next to me, the deputy head of Krasnodar territory sitting, Igor Galas. And when I visited Vladivostok, you know that we have two forums in September. At the beginning of September, there was a Far East forum in Vladivostok, and I was told in a plain language why people are leaving Far East, not the living standard, but the cost of the square meter in meterage in Vladivostok. And just know this, the cost in Vladivostok is the same as in Krasnodar, 100,000. Oh, it got cheaper. But this is European part, so Vladivostok is far away, and just the 8-hour time difference. So when you're living in Krasnodar, it's much better. You feel closer to Moscow, and so Krasnodar and Kaliningrad are the best options to migrate from Vladivostok. And so the issue is there a demand inside the country? Because we can develop regions for a long time, but when we discuss these things, the savings bank session, when we discussed what regions shouldn't do, and I will repeat myself, it was said that the region should be doing, and the talk that we will decrease the inflation rate, and then the investments will start. And why investment should go here where there's no demand? Just to produce something and to sell somewhere abroad. Why not China, Malaysia, if there's no demand, a domestic market? So the issue is can we develop the demand inside regions? Are regions capable without assistance of the federal center? And sometimes federal center complicates the issues, putting the budget load and to develop and to spend money to improve the investment tractability. So if there is such a potential, can you tell me what are these ways? Because I cannot find okay, thank you very much. The esteemed
if we would have known this recipe, we would probably create a sort of an economic miracle in this region. But we want more. So naturally, if I speak a little bit more about the topic of our discussion, I fully agree with Ekaterina, even in terms of the goals that the Ministry of Economic Development set for itself. The anti-crisis plan, which we also call the plan for sustainable development of the economy and the social stability. So this plan is something that would not give us any new ideas in the mid and long-term perspective. It would not give us any big change. We need more serious tools. Despite the crisis, well, let's forget about the word crisis, despite the difficult conditions, sanctions, counter-sanctions, we are nevertheless quite active in developing our strategy. We do it inviting experts, because we have to broaden the level of experts and not to do it only through the executive body, but through other government agencies. We're expecting to get the strategy 2030 by the mid-2017 without any pressure. By ourselves, we're discussing it during this forum of where to go and what to do. Yes, we are doing a lot of thinking, but we don't get this full understanding of where we want to go in the long term. So if we have this strategy, if we follow the strategy for a certain period of time, showing the investors that we are really ready to do it, then we might be able to show that our strategy would work out. Because you're credited not for this level of inflation, but the one that you would get in a couple of years. I think this communication is the most important. The investor has to be sure about the stability and the predictability of our policy. In terms of the anti-crisis plan, again, so-called anti-crisis plan, there is a certain set of measures recommended by the Ministry of Economic Development. We complied with it, of course. We have it implemented, more than 70 points, split into social and economic measures. And I wouldn't say that we invented additional measures. We just set up a non-diminishing volume of social guarantees. So in terms of the economic measures, we are probably acting as all other regions are, because we're in one economic area. So maybe here you can speak about, best and worst practices, about the ideas that are generated and the possibilities of using them in our region. We're trying to work something out considering the specificity of our economy. So what have we achieved in terms of the present day? Well, first, we created a system for monitoring, for statistically monitoring the delay in salary payments. Our system is set and works smoothly. It is not the official statistics. We have the latent salary delays, which is much bigger than the actual one. So the experience shows that at early stages we're able to find funds, help the enterprise before it really breaks into pieces. And we, of course, work with companies that are going through hard times. And in this respect, we have achieved certain results. First, we're helping bankrupts to use their assets in the economic activity, and this support from the government this supports actually impedes those who want to get these assets to do so after the company is declared bankrupt. So our structure is relatively diversified. We don't have any major or core industries, but during the last years, the industry segment went down. In terms of the sustainable development plan, we have a program for developing the industry in our country. Indeed, it can go up to 100 million of financing every year, but we're now thinking of stimulating and supporting the industry, measures that would show the biggest effect possible. And I think the biggest issue, Ekaterina mentioned it, well, it's really a plea for Krasnodar, is the budget limitations for our measures for stimulating the economy. It is of as of today, we have quite a big public debt, which was generated after the Olympics. We lended a lot of money to build part of the infrastructure, and so we lended a lot of money for building the infrastructure, and we have 146 million dollars of debt, and we're limited in terms of financing. This has been discussed, and we have to solve it somehow. We have to, of course, conduct the sanation of the industry, and we have to look at what kind of regional policy that is, whether it was populistic or it was made following the decrees of the federal government. So I think we have to conduct this work once and for all, find which debt is actually justified and which is not, and try not to allow further increase of the public debt, be more efficient in terms of spendings, increase budget revenues in order for the regional authorities to be more effective, to have bigger effect on the budget. And I think the main leverage here would be budget financing. Maybe that was not a concise answer, but I think, but you gave us your view, and it actually shows that there are no specific goals, specific steps to follow, or at least we haven't found them yet. Ekaterina, maybe we can audit this debt and sort it, split into justified, context, justified and unjustified debt types. The Tomsk region, for instance, in terms of the regional public debt, is very responsible. They always attract money from the citizens. Their budget is greatly financed by citizens, but what is important is that citizens were actually trusting regional bonds, so the government always paid back. So this is a positive business case, but we also have regions which increase the regional public debt in an unjustified way. So is it possible to solve this problem economically? You're absolutely right. Well, answering and giving a direct answer to your question, yes, you can solve it and you can sort the debt. But now, giving a broader answer, well, you have to analyze case by case, because statistics show only general indicators, and behind these statistics you have projects and people, and you have to adapt an individual dynamic approach, not an individual static approach, because projects and debts can be different. Inflation, you know, it's a debt as well. So debts can be different. You can have moral debts. So you have to analyze every situation separately, independently. You have to think of the personnel, of whether it's the personnel is capable or not of managing the situation, and don't be afraid of debts. Debts can be efficient, producing something, and inefficient. Sometimes inefficient debts can be also different. On one hand, if you invest in the human capital, the revenue, the payback can happen not only here, not only now, and not only in your benefit. So it's ideologically a difficult question to analyze, but you have to audit any debt. You have to analyze it. There are standards, and you have to see if these indicators, this criterion is meeting the standards. But you can't spend a lot of time analyzing. You can't spend 2 years analyzing because things change. You have to be dynamic in your audit. So the strategy should be as follows. First, you cut all the debts that quantitatively do not match the indicators. Then analyze it by region, statically and dynamically. Then select the projects following specific criteria. So no corruption should be involved here. And then, sorry for once again mentioning the ratings, my topic. You need a number of indicators. Financial efficiency is often overlooked. Mr. Mao yesterday said that during one of the lectures at the university, one of the former governors, as he corrected himself, not because of the speech he stopped being the governor. So this former governor frankly said that in the governor's club, the only 2 KPIs are the elections results, so how much the leading party got and how much money they managed to get from the federal budget. So as long as these are going to be the stimuli for, as long as these are going to be the incentives for the KPIs and for the efficiency of the governors, we would still have what we have today. So we need to have specific financial indicators. It has to be very finely adjusted. Of course, being subjective is something that we cannot avoid. So we're not only working following distance remote analysis, we do offline analysis as well. But without that, we can't move forward. Okay, my next question to Vyacheslav. A very interesting topic. When we speak about the Tula region, of course, it's first of all about the military defense industry. So can this defense industry be a driver for the development of the regional economy, at least for the regional economy? And we're a country of lessons not learned. So we sometimes do not learn from ourselves. So can, on the regional level, the defense industry to be a driver for the regional development, just like as it is in the Tula region? Thank you very much. It would be a very brief answer. Defense industry is a driver already of the regional development. So people go for resorts to Sochi and to work in the defense industry in Tula. Well, I wouldn't be speaking about anti-crisis plan, but about things we have to do that concerns federal plans for 2015 and 2016. I was participating in the development of the plans for 2015 and 2016. I was working not only in the government of the region, but also in the Ministry of Economic Development. And the question we always got was, why do you call this plan an anti-crisis one? It's not an anti-crisis. It's the tool of development. It's the tool that allowed middle enterprises, middle industrial enterprises, to find new projects. It's not anti-crisis. It's a tool that we should multiply by 10 or by tens. But if we speak about the regional programs, are we speaking about regional programs? No, we're talking about federal programs right now. So the central bank is suspending this program, but I just wanted you to say that. Well, going back to the regional plan, there are several chapters. Of course, the key things are people and enterprises. We tried to make it the way that the most vulnerable, affected by the crisis people, be protected, and enterprises that, due to sanctions and other reasons, are suffering to get the support they need from the federal and the regional authorities. When the regional plan was developed, we tried to include all the federal measures in our plan for the local entities to actually get this support, agricultural, industrial enterprises to get this support. Everything that the Ministry of Industry does has to be, well, finally conducted and finally reach the destinations. And Ekaterina, I would not comment on the first point, but I would argue on the second point in a good way. It's very important, but how much federal financing could we attract to our system? Because our system is centralized, and all the funds that go through the ministries, they are focused on reaching the destinations through the respective authorities.
What else did we do when we put together our anti-crisis plan? At the beginning, the regions were not given enough time because to shape up their own plans. So we did our best. And we came to the point that all programs on industry and support of people translated to our level. And I'd like just, you mentioned that you are provoking, and we also provoking you. So you said that the federal center is just translates social responsibility. Why it's not bad? In the May decree, this is just, what should be done. So the compensation for the teachers and the obligations the regions try to fulfill. So this is the thing that should be done. And I will reply. Well, I didn't say this was bad. I was saying that this is bad that the restricted amount of money is available and expand the costs implies that the share that was allocated with developing economies is shrinking. This is bad, and this is regretful. The social expenses are increasing, and so is it good from economic standpoint? This is reality we are living through. This is new reality. This is not crisis, and we have to maneuver under these conditions. And the main task of the regional teams under these conditions, whether budget, whether it's developed or not, or if it takes 1-2% from the federal budget to maintain the major areas. So 2 years ago, we set up the special economic zone, and it was the first first zone economic that complied with the standards, with KPI, annual KPI on the amount of residents, on tax deductions, and in Tula, not a single ruble will be taken from the federal budget. We undertook about 4 billion rubles over 4 years. Maybe for some regions this is not big, but for us it's big, and we are voluntarily doing that to set up new production plants. And under these conditions, despite the crisis, and for us it's new reality, so despite all this, we are just doing our best to maneuver and to maintain the priority areas from the standpoint of development, using the toolbox as a special economic zone and other. We're just doing our best to find new industrial projects that could enter the project funding. Now we're changing the format. So what I was wish to say, this is not a crisis, this is new reality, and we have to maneuver under these conditions, and the quality of the management teams are important, and the Ministry of Economic Development, Agency of Strategic Initiatives are undertaking the training on management under these complicated conditions that we are living through. And under we have to keep in mind the development. Oh, well, thank you very much. You just sound inspiring, and the Ministry of Economic Development dubs it as a new normality, and we like when the tasks are challenging, and I agree with you. And the question I'd like to raise, if we don't have demand, if we don't grow the demand, and even at this forum we heard the opinion, Mr. Avin raised the issue of maybe for this slow development rate for Russian economy is norm, and there are groups of economists in Russia inclusive, and they maintain that we cannot benchmark ourselves with China. And in China, over 30 years, things changed. Skyscrapers were developed, the railroads were developed, automobile roads, and internal demand, which was controlled by the government, was there. And we're saying just even in Russia, with strapped with living quarters, and I already gave an example of people leaving Vladivostok to migrate to European part. So we can just under this, with this rate, keep developing. Well, I'd like to be more positive, and I'd like to show the whole spectrum of opinion in the results of a plenary session. For instance, we were discussing the rate of development and the automobile roads. Federal roads are good. In regions, this is region specific. Some regions have good roads, some not. From economic standpoint, when I was working in the expert community, I could afford myself to discuss various models, and there are alternative opinions how to come to 7% or 10%, and now I cannot do that. And now what we're having today, this is reality, and we have to cope with that, thinking about what else we can do to provide just a good lifestyle for our citizens, and not to satisfy the domestic market, but import things. We have to work hard, and we don't have time to think whether it's good or bad. We have to cope with this situation. Well, historical, funny story from the past, and a party, when the primaries were held, and one of political leaders who at the primaries had to check whether he is supported or not, he was saying in the TV, just come to our town, we have just grand roads, and the primaries were spoiled by that. I agree with that. Well, come to Tula region. Well, I will tell you right away it was not Tula region, but to maintain that the roads are good, you should be cautious by throwing this argument. Well, it's more interesting, and is it sufficient to use the shrinking funds in the regional fund, increase of the social, well, can you grow 0.1, 0.2% growth rate? Is it normal for regional economy? Well, you invited to Tula region, and I suggest that you stay in Krasnodar. If we discussed talking about roads, we just now have rather good roads by Russian standards. As for the growth rate, well, the absence of growth is not normal. So if we we have to follow the example of Japan, where they're using technology of next generation, and some things they cannot afford, and they discussed this thing. These things are debatable, what should be done to increase the growth of economics, and we can maintain about the specificity of the Russian soul character, but when we give assessment to the economic situation, we should follow the general approach and use the categories of economy, and our economic policy should be fine-tuned to ensure the growth. Economic growth. And as for the strapped resources, and look for a compromise to provide of social guarantees of a high level, and the budget, the search of narrowing capabilities, search for funds to stimulate economy. Well, the situation is very complicated, and I think that we should find the social consensus. So if we refer to the May presidential decrees, of course, such high social standards are good things to have, and we have to do our best to comply with the standards. But I will remind you that in the 90s, I used to work in the government system. There were just mandates, and the guarantees were there, but the majority were not kept up with because the budget was cash-strapped. So there should be a reasonable compromise, and I think each regional team should calculate these plans, and the federal on the federal level, experts should run their calculations, and to give an example and just to give a result whether these standards can be maintained or not. Speaking about Krasnodar, we are working on the draft budget for the next year, and for the planned period, we want to make it 3-year budgeting plan, and we're doing our best to provide funds to meet with the presidential decrees, and I'm referring only to social, to keep up with the compensation growth rate. And there are several decrees that aimed at the stimulating economy, which we are not discussing. Why we failed to reach 25 million of high productivity working jobs. You remember that. Well, we started speaking about the setting up new jobs, and then just the modernized jobs. And in the end of the day, most likely we will have modernized. Well, maybe it's accounting for the big share of a defense industry, and maybe a high production rate jobs are higher in Tula than in Krasnodar, and we're thinking about that. Decree provided for a 30% decrease of 1.5 times. I don't quite remember, but nevertheless, we understand objectively that we will fail to meet this goal. So there are issues dealing with the method, because non-productive sector was evaluated by the wages, and financial sector was benchmarked using some other technique. And there are issues on methodology. But I'd like to share with you our practice. Now we won't change the structure of economy overnight, and we want to increase the share of industry where we can develop the high production rate jobs. And in agriculture, we have examples when the business entities increase the production rate by a factor of 5 to 7. And the mechanism that was tested, and in 3-5 years down the road, we will just apply lean technologies, not only on industry scale, but we want to promote it systematically, how it was developed in Japan and the US, when the businesses just started losing the competing edge in US with Japan. So now we deal with the mindset, and we have to change our businessmen be more staying focused on using the resource, and we are running workshops for our businessmen within the framework of Deripaska Fund. Hope it will we will have a feedback. Well, this is quite ambitious to change the mindset. This is a challenge. It's good that when you hire Germans, and apparently because of the Germans working, the reinforced business management it was developed in the 80s, and it was forgotten, and now we're recalling again. So all those approaches of the scientific approach to stimulate the production rate, they came into the focus. Well, just coming back to the lessons not learned. Well, in the past there were many good things. Am I correct when I understand that we just started the discussion triggered by Alexei Kudrin? He is quite high on agenda for regions, because he suggested to spread over time the meeting the goals set in the May decrees of the presidential. Well, I'm interested in how you handle this issue. Well, this is a more political rather than financial issue, and as a financial person, I would agree that you have to take a pause, just time out, and look at the realistic growth of the compensation and economy, and most likely this is a political solution or decision that just not the years to 2018 is mentioned. It will be very difficult to accomplish if the federal center does not offset the increase. So there should be support. Yeah, political and economic. And Alexei, we paid attention to that when we ran the broadcast, because the journalists don't quite always understand, because, well, the journalists commented that Kudrin suggested to freeze the wage rise. So, Vyacheslav, what's your approach to this, the May decrees? Because we are living through in this new reality. Well, indeed, this is a political issue, but I'd like to remind you that in 2001 there was a challenge to double GDP, but as a result, if you run calculations, we accomplished this goal. So regardless of what's happening, by 2018, 19, or 20, the whole of economy will come to the levels that would meet all obligations undertaken by the government, and not only because we increase the wages of doctors and teachers. The rest of the economy will just catch up. And then I will ask Ekaterina, the head of Accra, is this political or economic issue? Well, as always, there's no just unique answer. I would just color our discussion by adding the following. When we speak about the social responsibilities, we associate it only with May decrees, which is wrong thing to do. I think that the whole set of social commitments requires revision. Well, the commitments of regions on making payments. I'm not a lawyer. If I'm just not using right words, correct me, Phil. Please, the just obligatory medical insurance for not working workers. And look at the data for some regions. For this money, you can just develop a power station. I'm just now, of course, exaggerating, but at this forum, the head of pension fund was taking floor, and he said that due to verification of the data on the pension fund, they managed to make an optimization, but it's just an onset of a process. I know that the regions, about 50% of costs of in their own budget of social costs are allocated with these payments. And let's be frank, by dubbing, this is the people working in the gray sector, the people are working in the federal centers, and because these data are not recorded, this is not just wrongdoing. That just a person, a citizen, may not know about that, and being provided the medical services for paying his own money at different territories, but the costs are absorbed. So I feel that when we come to the new stage, they may decrease. And what about the previous? What had happened before? And this is wrong thing to do. I think let's start with revising these costs, just double-checking these costs, because, of course, this doesn't imply that we should just reject them altogether at the Federal Assembly level. This is just, the very tedious work that should be done, and there's just some examples of the regions. Some regions showed much economy and savings. So I think I would answer your question in this manner.
Well, on the federal budget level, I can quote the head of the accounting chamber. Well, the money, we can find it, but how to spend it. And in the regional budgets, it's the same situation. You can find a lot of money by redistributing the expenses. Well, if it was so, we would be looking for this money together with my colleague and not being here. So it's all optimized. You can't find additional money. Well, of course you can optimize, you can be more efficient, but it's about the scale. To find 10, 15 million within 1 year, it requires a lot of work. So I would like to say that we are working on the anti-crisis measures, and we have to be very careful about it. And it would be great if the regions invited the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development before the decisions are made. Well, before the decision is made, it would be great to have a conversation. We've been discussing the latest initiatives for discussing the redistribution of the tax on profits, corporate tax. It's great to have donators among the regions, but it's good to have also recipients that would benefit from this redistribution. If we have to find 15 to 20 million, and that's difficult, finding several hundred millions would be even more difficult, and you have to really work together with the ministries. It's an excellent proposal. Alexander Cybulski, Deputy Ministry of Economic Development, is not with us, but we have representatives of the Ministry of Economic Development with us. Olga, what do you think about the proposal? I think the mic would be on in a second. Could you help us? It should be working. Well, in terms of your proposal, we, of course, support this proposal. This is actually our proposal to the regions to work together. In terms of the anti-crisis plans, all the regions work in a different way. And in part, this is what they already do. Our focus now is on decentralizing the management, the government administration, in order for the regions to attract more investors using the mechanisms proposed by the government, the territories with special regimes, participation in the state programs, which allow the regions to build new infrastructure. Sometimes the regions did not calculate the effect from getting the benefits from the investors, and the result they get in the end. So basically, their expectations were not thought through, and a lot of efforts were focused on getting federal funds. And, well, they had to get additional support from the federal government. The government is now analyzing the powers that every region has. And what we detected is that more than a half of the regions cannot execute or use the powers they have, which is an additional load for the federal budget. In 2015, the regions got 600 billion rubles to balance their budgets between the regions. So it is clear that when there is deficit, it is necessary to find new sources. And we have regions where what they get from the federal budget is much bigger than their own budget revenues. Under these conditions, we think that it is necessary to change the regional policy approach and improve the inter-budget relationships, maybe through direct administration of the problem regions, those that cannot, deliver their promises, and by learning from the leaders and by giving them more authorities and more powers. This is what we do today. We will, of course, continue doing that with all the regions. Well, speaking about the positive things, in terms of the anti-crisis, I would like to thank the regions for their work. A lot of proposals came helping us to change the federal legislation. Some of the initiatives were made on the government level, and a lot of proposals are worked out together with the regions. But to have specific criteria, what are the highly efficient jobs? Because it's the Ministry of Economic Development that develops this method. What's the highly efficient job? It's a topical and sensitive issue for us. We're working on it. Thank you. Okay. Well, a question to those in the panel discussion. Well, just summing up, are we going to reach the break-even in the regions? So can they make more can they get more in revenues than they spend in order for them to be independent from the federal budget, at least strategically? And for the gross regional product, what are the prospects of growth? Igor, starting with you. Okay, thank you. Well, as I see it, if we don't face any new negative events, analyzing the economic indicators we have in the region, I think we can be positive as early as this year in terms of the GRP. If last year we had minus 1.5%, this year it's going to be positive, maybe 0.5. Maybe it's within a statistical mistake, but at least it's better than the last year. And what would be a good rate? We think it would be 4 to 5%. And can you do that? Is it possible to reach that indicator? Well, under current condition in midterm, I think yes, that's possible. Well, we reached the bottom in the construction industry. Why we don't have more active growth? Because the construction industry is down by 22%. Of course, the investments are going down as well. But it is great that during the Sochi Forum, we signed a lot of midterm agreements for the volume of 500 million rubles. Alteco company is the one that is accounting for the majority of these investments, rebuilding and renovating the Timan port. But there are other growth points along the region. So we think that we are going to keep the investment level quite high. This year it's going to go down a little bit, but thanks to the Sochi Forum contracts in part, it's going to go up. Some comments. The Ministry of Economic, the colleague from the Ministry of Economic Development is correct when saying that the regions have a lot of powers. At the same time, we would want the federal government to oversee for the regions to be fair when competing with each other. Sometimes the ministry was just traveling across the regions requesting to reduce the corporate tax, and if not, it would affect the financing of the region. So, of course, that was to fight against the unfair competition. The same goes for alcohol production. Well, you can't subsidize alcohol manufacturers openly, but in the regions, we found that alcohol manufacturers got hidden subventions. So they got a lot of support and got the licenses, the reduced number of licenses that we have for alcohol production. And now licenses are given based on the amount of alcohol sold. I think that's the way to go. And that leads, of course, to competition among the regions for the investments, for high-quality jobs, but competing within the law according to fair competition, using managerial skills. This is my answer. Thank you very much. Vyacheslav, same questions? Well, this might be a bad example, but we had a 5 to 7% of GRP. That's unusual, but a very good example. And we looked at the first 6 months statistics. It's quite positive in terms of investments. Even foreign investments was growing. We're growing by 2%. Of course, that's not a lot, but in the current context, 2% is not bad. So this is briefly what we did. Well, Kaluga region has always been a champion in attracting investments, but it's actually the same. It's actually the region that increases its debt. Well, if the FDI is growing together with the debt, that's maybe not very good. It's a separate talk, of course. It's very complicated. Debt is a matter of structure, so it has to be discussed separately and in more detail. But well, sometimes you can pay back the loan at the same time creating jobs. So lending is a different topic. Sorry, my example might not be very good, but at least it shows that if you work a lot with investors, it doesn't mean that you're independent from the federal budget. And at the same time, if the region can make as much money as it needs, there would be no need for the federal budget to finance, to subsidize the region. So it's a good example of the investors not being the solution. Well, I wouldn't be that sure about it. Well, the fact that you have a regional debt doesn't mean you're losing money and you have no money. I wouldn't be that certain about it. Of course, we have dramatic examples, but most of the regions are, well, doing relatively well in terms of debt and income. Well, I agree, and I think Yekaterina would also agree with you, because she was talking about it before, and you have to be fair when saying that a rating agency is the entity that changed the method for calculating the performance. Unlike your Western colleagues who actually are focusing on the debt indicators. So this actually gives us the opportunity to be more objective in terms of evaluating the regional performance. So maybe you can just sum up. Of course, we're not living in crisis, but crisis trends can appear, of course. So do you agree with that? Yes, I totally agree that trends are more worrying than facts. And uncertainty, of course, is very worrying. This thinking of where to go and what to do, this is what destabilizes business people and regional authorities, because you need to establish rules of the game. And I would agree with those who ask for involving more the regions into the decision-making process, because a consensus is a good thing. When we were launching our project, although we have all the authorities to take unilateral decisions, we actually asked for feedback, and 80% of the comments, we actually included them in our regulations and our methods. But going back to your first question about the difference between the regions, well, I think there would always be a difference between the regions, and it's not necessary to make everybody the same. And in the beginning, I was saying that you have the fact that you objectively assess your situation, your current situation, is already very important. It's already a very important step. And in terms of revenues, in terms of debt, you would always be dependent on the federal budget. And of course, you have to give more powers to the regions carefully, looking how the social payments are made. Because when you ask about the prospects of development, we're always speaking about consolidated figures, but this growth that sometimes is +1, sometimes is -5 on the federal level, this is what we get from several breaks the regions get. So on the federal level, it's a theoretical exercise, while in the regions, it's about achieving the goals or not of the economic development. So something that was probably missed during today's discussion, I'm often asked, well, you were provoking, and I'm asking myself questions.
Where else we have the potential of growth? And it's paradoxical to just formulate that our lack of efficiency is our advantage, our biggest advantage. And you were provoking, but didn't mention that, because I see that everywhere that due to some minimum improvements, and I gave you an example of payments into the medical insurance for people who are not working. And indeed, many things can be achieved. For instance, having finished our session on time is just another way to increase the efficiency, and this is just a hint, and I understood it. Because when people are hearing as recorded, if they save 5 minutes, maybe these viewers will just end up with a very good idea. So we're just throwing many good words, but just to make a productive conclusion, make something tangible that can just improve the growth of GDP at any workplace. I just take out the discussion that the GDP is a wrong parameter to monitor, because GDP was invented during industrial years in the US. This is the cost of a sold product. which is produced over a specific period of time. So if in the past you had to spend 1,000 rubles to go by taxi, now you went to Uber and just, you cut your cost by a factor of 2, or just, it doesn't imply that GDP decreased. Well, just measurable indexes is an issue, and the economists just are in debt with economists. Why keys just kept being resurrected, and I'm not sure that the growth in the mathematical model that we deliver is the goal that we have to achieve. But we cannot argue that it's good that we want to achieve. If this is the goal, if we want to increase the growth at the federal level, it will be composed of pluses and minuses, just pluses and deltas at the regional level. So the task of the federal center to just sum up and make that just the sum is plus and not zero. So this is the art of the federal center, to take the composing elements and obtain the big plus. But this is not working when you level off. So I think that the next economics Nobel Prize will be given to the person who is capable of calculating. No, this is yet another myth. And my friend who was involved in real business, and he was a gamer, and he just calculated the profiles for 3 politicians and sold it for $3 million. Well, this is just a comment. I'm glad that the representatives of regions, and I was looking forward, just stayed away from asking, give us more money from the federal center, and this issue was not just widely debated. Well, at least we didn't boil down our discussion to this issue. At least I tried to provoke you in this direction, but you didn't follow me, and I would like to thank all participants, and the attending last session is a feat, and I'd like to thank all members of Palat, and I understand that well, 2 forums over 1 month is it hurts, and I'm thanking organizers to bring up this issue and allow us to discuss it. Thank you very much.